Okay. So welcome everybody to our second session from the France Ireland Chamber of Commerce Tech Working Group. Um, Again, our second session is on achieving the promise of AI and automation lessons from the front line. So I'd like to thank Sia, one of our patrons, and Ciara and Victor and you who will be taking us through. Some real case studies showing, I suppose, how AI opportunities have been identified, prioritized by business value, and rapidly delivered. So from discovery to working AI agents in just weeks. So hopefully it'll be very interesting for everybody. So I'll hand over to Ciara to take us through the session today.
Super. Thanks a million, Mark. And also before we get into it, I'd like to thank Leah and Estelle from the Chamber for helping us to organise the programme, which will continue on through to later in the year. The session, as Mark said, is focused on achieving the promise of AI and automation as opposed to automotion, as I think, not really sure what automotion would be in this case, but AI and automation. The title is quite deliberate on our behalf. We really wanted to kind of talk about what it actually takes to make sort of agentic automation work in reality in enterprises. So just a quick intro. So my name is Ciara Close. I'm a senior manager with Sia here in Dublin in our business and digital transformation team. So a lot of my work focuses on strategy, innovation, and AI across multiple different sectors, so insurance, agri, life sciences, and so on. I'll pass over to Victor to introduce himself.
Hi everyone, I'm Victor Denis. I'm a manager in the business digital transformation team in the UK. I'm mostly working on AI projects through use case identification, roadmap, pricing strategy, etc. I'll pass it on to you.
Yes. Good afternoon. Very nice to meet you all. My name is Yu. I'm Managing Director for Sia Benelux, leading the practice here for AI and data. I'm joining today from Amsterdam. Happy to discuss AI and automation topics today. If we can go to next slide, and I can first start with a bit of introduction about who we are from Sia side. Have 2 slides on that. So if you don't know about Sia is an AI native consulting firm. We're in the market for about 27 years now. What our strength is in transformation, but also the hands-on delivery when it comes to AI projects. From topics like designing resilient AI systems and roadmaps for your companies for different sectors, use case factories, governance in place, AI Act compliance, to also when it comes to specific use case, proof concept, computer visions, multi-agent systems for automations. Of course, comes to the foundations, right? When it comes to agentic AI system, it's super important to have good engineering capability, and that's also what we offer. And we do that not alone, but also with our tech partnerships. We have quite a robust but also large ecosystems for companies like Anthropic, AWS, OpenAI, and Databricks, which helps us when it comes to industrialize certain use cases with customers. If we go to the next slide. When it comes to our capabilities on applied intelligence, and we have globally 6 AI hubs, and 2 of them are actually here in Europe. We support the customers in different sectors, like I mentioned, from energy to finance, manufacturing, life science, which will sort of partially reflecting our case studies today. We were quite strong in fastly prototyping. Usually when it comes to proof concept takes about 4 to 6 weeks, and 6 to 8 weeks we're kind of ready to move things to production. And we do that also internally with our business experts in different sectors. We try to combine the domain knowledge from finance, from manufacturing, utilities, in also together with our AI expertise. So we have a public accessible Sia agent store. Nowadays it's about 1,000 agents. Beginning of the year was only 200. As you can imagine, we're also fastly growing on the internal agents. And one thing to highlight here, which is I think really above the market average, is that we have a ratio of 60% conversion rate from pilots to production, and that's also for companies like Meta, where we are working for. It's quite a good conversion rate from their perspective. And I think I'll stop here for our introduction and give back to Ciara for the topic today.
Super, thanks a million. So the way we wanted to structure today is, as I said, we wanted to make this as useful as possible. And so we've broken it out into three sections. So I'll give a quick overview of sort of the landscape where AI or agentic automation stands now in 2026. You know, what the barriers are, what some of the working principles that really help to separate programs that land and are successful versus those that stall. I'm then going to hand it over to Victor and Hugh, who are going to bring you through 3 case studies. So those case studies sit across financial services, insurance, and energy sectors. And then we wanted to have a little bit of a panel discussion. So Victor, Hugh, and I will take some questions together before we open it out to the floor. And as I said, this is about trying to make it as useful and helpful to people on the call. So when we get to sort of the panel discussion, you know, we'd be delighted if people would join in and ask questions and then kind of create a bit of dialogue around this. So before we go any further, I think you know, this was one thing you know, that we just want to be clear about what we're talking about today, because I think you know, AI in the enterprise covers, you know, a lot of different things, and they're not all the same conversation. So one end we have the process automation, which is sort of structured, rules-based work, reporting, data pipelines. It's the kind of stuff that, you know, Power BI or traditional automation platforms handle really well. And then we have AI assistants for individuals. So that will be, you know, using Claude and ChatGPT and Copilot to draft faster, do better research or deeper research, and get to first versions and first drafts quicker. But what we wanted to focus on today really sits in that third category of agentic automation. It's AI that doesn't just answer a question or speed up a person's tasks and activity, but really takes action inside a business process, end to end, with a defined degree of autonomy. So that might be, you know, around onboarding a new client, processing some kind of a transfer, you know, assessing claims. It's a fundamentally different undertaking to the other two, and you know, there's a lot of difficulty that comes with that, but there's also a huge amount of genuine opportunity that comes with it. So for many organizations, you know, there's a significant gap between their ambition and the reality when it comes to agentic automation, and that gap manifests in a variety of different ways. So we have a number of different stats here. They're all published this year, but I suppose one caveat that we call out with these kind of statistics related to AI is that, you know, the pace of change is so fast. So a study that was shared 3 months ago might refer to data that was captured 6 or 9 months ago, which is really a lifetime when we're talking about the pace of change that comes with AI. But they do give a really good sense of the direction of travel. So the first one I call out is the gap between sort of planning and action. Gartner's 2026 hype cycle for agentic AI noted that only 17% of organizations have deployed AI agents to date, but then more than 60% plan to do that within the next 2 years. Gartner are calling it the most aggressive, or referred to as the most aggressive adoption curve that they're currently tracking across various different emerging technologies. The second gap that I call out is that between pilot and production. You know, pilots get built, they get tested, they get demoed internally. But in January, Deloitte published a report on the state of AI in the enterprise and highlighted that only 25% of organizations that were building pilots had moved 40% or more into production. So conversely, of the other 75% of organizations, less than 40% were moving into production. The third is around personal to agentic. So in Reuters' 2026 enterprise survey, they found that their top tier AI users were saving up to about 9 hours a week. But from the same research, only 20% of the leaders that they surveyed reported significant ROI from AI agents specifically. So personal productivity and agentic ROI are really not the same thing, and assuming that one can automatically lead to the other is how organizations can end up frustrated or disappointed. The fourth then is around maturity. Governance frameworks exist on paper almost everywhere. But McKinsey's State of AI Trust in 2026 found that only 1 in 3 organizations have a mature level of agentic AI governance. That's a new category that they're tracking. Most governance models that exist today are built for a different kind of AI. They're built for AI that produces an output for a person to check before it goes anywhere. They aren't necessarily built for a system that can take action itself. And that's the muscle that organizations haven't built, and it's why agentic category is harder than the other 2 categories that I mentioned at the top. And then the fifth is value concentration. AI value is real and is growing. PwC's AI performance study found that 74% of value is being captured by just 20% of firms, and obviously most organizations don't sit within that 20%. So we 5 different surveys from 5 different firms. They all point to the same underlying shape, that agentic automation isn't failing. It's just that it's further behind than plans would suggest on various different dimensions. And the constraint isn't model capability. The models are there. There's already a capability overhang when it comes to the models. It's really about the organizational conditions that sit around the deployments. And that's really what we wanted to focus on today. So, as I said, agentic automation, the hardest category of the 3. It inherits all of the difficulty of sort of broader enterprise AI challenges. But then the question is, well, how do we make it actually work? That's what we want to get at. It's not whether AI automation, is good in principle, but really what does it take to get one of these programs from idea to something running in production without it stalling, draining budget, having people lose credibility along the way. The environment that agents are operating in, have to operate in, is almost never as clean as you would expect. What we see consistently when we get into the details with clients, is that data lives across, 4 or 5 different systems that were never designed to talk to each other. Processes that have never been properly documented, where there's exceptions built on top of exceptions, where teams are operating in different ways, interacting with those processes. And then legacy infrastructure that's really expensive to replace or too fragile to integrate with cleanly. And the fundamental governance question, as I said, around, at what point does the agent act autonomously and what point does the human step in? So these 4 conditions are really what, all agentic programs have to work through or deal with. They're not just discriminatory. All organizations are starting here or are dealing with these challenges, whether you're among that 20% that are capturing value or not. And so environment is not really what separates the programs that work versus the ones that stall. It's all about approach. And that the approaches that that fail tend to look similar across sectors and organization sizes, across technology choices. So recognizing those challenges early is half the battle, because every one of them is a failure of approach, not of the technology. So the first is, starting with the technology instead of the problem. Someone can get excited about a platform or a model, and the organization can try to work backwards to find a use case for it, but it really rarely lands because the technology was never actually solving a problem anyone properly defined. The second is POC purgatory. A pilot can get built, it can work well enough, it can stay funded and then just sit there. But the issue is really that nobody is making the decision to scale it. Nobody is making the decision to kill it. It just sort of lingers there, taking attention and credibility without delivering any real value. The third one is around efficiency capping ambition. Teams are often framing the opportunity around this as cost or time saved on existing work. And I think that is a legitimate goal, but it is also a limitation or a ceiling, and it misses the bigger prize, which is that, agentic automation can enable you to do things that the organization couldn't do before, to scale where it couldn't go before, to open up new revenue streams, open up new opportunities. The fourth is around building for today's models and today's constraints without really accounting for how fast the landscape moves. The solution that isn't designed to flex or be adaptable, can be obsolete before it's even fully deployed. And so, that's not a reason to wait, but it is a reason to build in such a way that we assume that change is going to happen. The fifth is around misalignment. Leadership conviction alone is not enough. If the people that are doing the day-to-day work don't have the time or the will or the inclination to engage, you can have a really brilliant sponsor, but you will have a stalled program if you don't build that bridge. And then the last is missing the right people in the room. There's design elements to this, there's validation, there's decisions, and they'll all stall if the skills and the roles that are needed are not at the table. Whether that's the technical expertise, the compliance input, domain knowledge of the people that are closest to the processes. So as I said, none of these are technology failures. They're really failures of approach, or and the inverse of each of these is in effect a lesson learned the hard way by organizations that have been through it. But lessons all the same. So we've kind of organized what we've learned into a phased approach, and I want to talk through that and the lessons that sit within each of those phases. How we approach agentic automation is through a rapid discovery process that starts with process mapping, identifying opportunity areas where AI could be leveraged. That then informs the use case definition and assessment, where we'll score and prioritize. And for the prioritized use cases, we then do a deep dive and build out the business case. Pre-production build allows us to design and test the solution before it goes into full production. So when we come to the use cases in a few minutes, you'll see that approach taken. But phase one is process discovery, and I think the foundational principle here is really that process is process before platform. You have to map out where the actual work happens, where it breaks, what the data and systems underneath it really look like, before you can have any conversation about models, platforms, designs. It's about walking the real process with the people that are doing the work, not the documented version of it, but the real one. And connected to this then is focusing on process improvements that are useful rather than impressive. Programs that embed themselves in how an organization actually works are the ones where, people choose to use the solution because it makes their job easier. It's not about the use cases or the automations that, that lend themselves to an impressive or extraordinary demo. And so getting that right is really a discovery discipline. Phase two is use case identification and assessment. Here it's really about prioritizing ruthlessly, scoring and prioritizing your long list of use cases with stakeholders and making sure you've got a really clear framework and sort of criteria around how you assess and prioritize. It's about focusing on, where the value is real and where implementation is feasible, and speed to production is achievable. So once you've got that combination, you've got a great opportunity. Not every opportunity is equal, and trying to move all things at once is really how you end up moving nothing at all. It's about getting quick wins with the use cases that are prioritized, wins that will earn trust, and therefore that will make it easier to secure budget for following use cases. Phase three is the deep dive and business case. Two principles here. This is about sprints, not leaps. The 80-20 rule applies. It's about getting to a working version, and a working solution that handles the bulk of the value quickly, with clear go, no-go gates at each stage. The gate, or having the go, no-go gates is really a direct antidote to the threat or the risk of POC purgatory. It's about having a defined decision point that forces people to say, on a set date, do we scale this? Do we need to pivot it? Do we kill it? It's about value and not just speed. It's about kind of understanding and measuring what becomes possible, not just the time saved or the money saved. It's also important to, I think, revisit the business case, as the landscape shifts and moves with time, because what was right today may not be right in 6 months' time. So kind of keeping an eye on the business case or the business argument is key. Phase 4 then is pre-production. So this is where, we need to design for oversight from day one, keeping human in the loop, checkpoints, evaluations, safeguards built in. These are things that shouldn't be just bolted on afterwards. They need to be part of the design. Also testing early, making sure you validate the agents in pre-production on real data before you commit to them. You can't assume that the technology will work until you have it running on real inputs and real environment. And each of these 4 principles, and on top of these, we've kind of 4 principles that we call out that run underneath the 4 phases. One is, around the leadership. It's leadership sponsorship must be active, not passive. Leadership removes blockers and champions engagement across the business. So buy-in at the top is necessary, but not sufficient on its own. And then tied to that is having the right team in place at the right time. Mapping, building, testing, and oversight all need technical, commercial, governance input, as well as the people closest to the process need to be in the room at the outset, not just for sign-off at the end. Move fast. Speed generates learning, and getting something working quickly allows you to turn lessons into improvements, and prevents any kind of risk of momentum stalling. And then finally, value doesn't follow the platform. Don't focus too much on, modernizing infrastructure and putting in place strict governance before you've proven the problem, proven the solution. You want to avoid kind of the rigidity of sort of late stage logistics and restrictions. What we're dealing with is an early stage problem, like it's an innovation problem that requires and needs flexibility. So with that summary, we'll move over to the case studies. That sort of shapes the problem, or the problems and the principles of working in these programs. But now we want to move into kind of what it looks like in practice. So we have 3 case studies today to share across financial services, insurance, and energy. So I'm going to hand over to Victor now.
Hi, everyone. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah. So I'm going to speak about a project that we have done recently in a financial services company, where we implement this rapid AI project. So we've been working for these clients who were estimating a 5-time growth in the next couple of years. And so to become one of the major players in the asset management in the UK. This growth was concerning for them because they didn't want to have a major increase in headcounts, which would erode margins and slowing service quality due to lead time increase based on the increase in transfer that they would have. Right. So we've been asked to come and identify the high value AI and automation opportunities. And when I say AI and automation, is because it was not necessarily focused only on AI. It was also part of automation opportunities, right? And then prioritize the impact, the feasibility, the speed as well at which they can implement this technology, and also the return on these investments. Right? They didn't want only a deck of slides, and this is where we come in with our expertise to build quickly, to be able to test the technology, to make sure that we are able to deliver, etc. So I'm just going to go through a quick walkthrough of what we've done. So during the first phase of this assignment, we've been given a list of the processes that the admin team had documented. And in front of these processes, there were the time that these people were spending on these processes, right? and this time was at process level. So we've identified 10 or so processes that were encountering more than 50% of the time that this team were spending on, right? Based on these 10 processes, this company didn't have like a process map at really at task level. So what we decided to do, and what this rapid AI discovery methodology is describing, is that we go deep dive into these processes, right? So we asked these people who are performing this task to show us what they are doing, how they are doing it, where they are going on their computer to collect the information, what are they doing with this information, how do they transform it, where does the knowledge sits to transform this data, right? So we've been doing that, and based on this, we identified a bit more than 25 use cases where AI or automation would really not replace, but really like fasten the processes, right? And when we say fasten, there is two way of seeing it. There is the lead time, and there is the waste time, right? And so we looked at this two ways, right? Once we have done this, we prioritized ourselves based on our knowledge of the company, of what we've seen from the team, of the different concern of the different team about this growth, these use cases. And we've put them into a matrix, which was like effort to build and effort save, right? And so we had in this quadrant 4 priority use cases that stood out, right? But we wanted to discuss them with the different team involved in this, right? So we gathered everyone around the table. So it was the CEO of the company. It was the different admin team, the different people in the admin team. We also gathered the transformation team of the company, the engineering team, the IT team, etc. And we've asked them to prioritize these use cases as well, with all the information that we gathered, etc. And we came with the same conclusion that these 4 use cases needed to move forward. Based on these 4 use cases, they were spread across two main processes, right? And we added 2 use cases from the long list of use cases that were not prioritized at the beginning to complete the process, so that we remove this process completely out of the human interaction. And when I say completely, it's not very true. We still keep human in the loop, but just for checking, not for actions, basically, right? When we've done that, we started building a pre-production agent, where we basically wanted to test this technology. So the team that were at these clients with us, it was composed of business analysts like me, but also data engineers, right? Or AI engineers, right? So we were able to build something quickly to demonstrate the value of this agent, right? And based on this, and based on the research that we've done, we've been able to identify the ROI. And quite easily, because it was process oriented, right? It was replacing a process. So we have all the time spent on different tasks, how many times they were doing it per day, what was the cost of this person, etc. per day, right? Once we have done this, while the tech team were developing the pre-production agents, we also designed the governance of these agents. And you will see that it's quite important to design a bit of a governance. So who owns the agents, the documentation about the agents, what happens if the agent fails, right? So we've developed this design, right, where we put some what we call safeguards to make sure that the agent is robust, but also if something happens, because something can happen, what is happening in this case. And we've identified that we can save for one of these use cases more than 60K a year in year one and 130K by 2029, right? So that's quite a lot for a company, right? And we would be able to save 2 FTs from day one, based on our calculation, right? And the test that we have been doing. And these 2 FTs, they were not made redundant. They were working on how to improve the rest of the team, how to improve the customer services, etc. So it's really not about laying people off. It's really about how do you make it better so you can grow better, basically. Can you move to the next slide, Ciara? Sorry, it's completely frozen for me.
Oh, this is it frozen for everyone else?
Is it? It's good. It's good. So
Okay.
yeah, it's good. So what we've learned from this is I have like 5 bullet points here, but we've learned a lot, right? The first one is really that we started with the waste, right? In the processes and in the team, right? Looking at where there is problems, right? And not start with the technology, right? We didn't want to put AI. What we wanted is to understand the problem, right? And this is where like everyone was on board during the project, right? Because they were starting to be burned out because there was growth, right? So how can we make things better for us, right? Then um, we wanted to go quickly, right? So what we decided to do is really to have this 80/20 80/20 methodology where we go fast and we've identified the most important things and we let the details to the later phase, right? We understand what is going on, we test it, and we build the ROI based on this, right? Then we wanted to test the technology stack, right? So these use cases, there were some OCR in place. So OCR is a technology that uses computer vision to extract information from documents, right? But these documents, they were sometimes handwritten, not only computer written, etc. Where we be able to collect the data, and can we have a level of certainty against the extraction of the data, right? That were correspondence. And if we were only able to have like 30% of this, then it would have been complex. Then we've put human in the loop, and I think it was very important for them and for us as well, as it's regulated by the FCA, etc. And also it ensures at the beginning that the agent is working well, right? And then you can start removing some human in the loop interaction along the way to increase the ROI, right? And what we've seen is that we can see the ROI coming up straight away from this, and this is what they wanted, right? Oh, this is going to work. This is working actually for us, right? So just a quick thing of what comes next for this project. So we've done this rapid AI discovery. This is only the beginning. We're going to put in place this agent. We are putting them in place now, actually. But then there is something about redefining your processes. How can AI transform your processes? Not only replace them, transform how you work, how this team will work in the future. How can they work in like other region with more interaction with your clients, etc. Right? And then based on this, you need to rebuild an infrastructure, an operating model, redefine the roles of the people in the team. And it's not about laying people off. It's about like understanding how they can work with the technology so that they will produce more and produce better, basically. So that's it for me now. I'll will let Hu continue.
Yes, thanks, Victor. I will share two case studies, a little bit more hands-on and more than discovery. One is in the life insurance sector. The second one is in the energy sector. While we're waiting for the slide to be ready, just to tell a bit about the context of the yeah, okay, that's in place of this use case. So the client is European leading life insurer. So they do a lot of fund eligibility analysis for the customers. It's a very heavy expertise manual work, and usually the documents they're handling are up to 800 pages, at least 200 pages, right? So it's very labor intensive scanning of documents containing text, tables, numbers. So it takes hours for them to cross-check with customers' profiles, certain rules, criteria for certain funds. And that's a problem we like to help the customers to handle, to automate, so that they can release the time, effort for other more productivity activities. So the solution we developed is agentic AI workflow solution. Basically, we have multiple agents getting the old public fund documents from websites like Morningstars. Those are public accessible, but traditionally you have to manually click and download. But now we have agents have the action-based browser solutions to collect those documents. Then we have agents extracts information from those documents. Cross-check it with the eligibility rules, but also link to the internal CRM systems about the customer informations, so that we can compare if a certain customers are qualified for a certain fund. So based on different scoring as well. So in summary, the agent's workflow does extraction from the documents, from text, tables, numbers. Second step is to classify based on the client's information. So we can classify the clients based on their qualification to different categories and different risk levels. Then the third part is apply the codified rules logics. So once we apply the codified rules consistently, it helps also for the standardization, because if it's only the experts or analysts who handle the manual eligibility checks, sometimes it's not so always consistent, right? So some different experts have different ways of doing the analysis. So here with AI agents, because rules or logics are codified, it actually also helps with standardization. And I think that also links to the last step, is to allow possibilities and to log in all the steps have been taken. So when it comes to auditing, it's really handy, right? So one thing also quite important here is that because it contains the actual client data, client case handling, we always like to have a human sign off. So that's also one important part here, is that in the tool solution we build, we always provide a review functionality features. As you can see on the screen, shots on the right, it gives a bit of indication, but in the end, when it comes to give the final go or no go, there's always a human expert reviewer in place before the decisions are communicated. If we could move to the next slide, just to share a bit of the insights on the final results, but also the sort of like lessons learned. So here we have quite an impressive performance in the final results. So in this project, we're working directly with the CEO, but also the chief insurance officer, who is leading the AI innovation sort of the department. And there, this is the first agentic AI use cases they have done. So we were already ready for sort of like not good results, because it's first one we are trying to explore. But in the end, the results are quite impressive, quite good. We have more than 90% of accuracy. The sorting of the customers is also with very good performing results, 95% above. And we were able to automate the rules check. About 75 rules are codified, and the decision of for the eligibility was cut from hours to less than 1 minute. So this is a huge gain for them. So they're really happy about the results. And this was even just done by less than 8 weeks with from scratch, right? So what we think made it work is that we don't just throw all the documents to a chatbot, Copilot, or Claude. We actually look at from the rigorous point of view is that instead of building the chatbot based experience, we went for the agentic workflow based approach so that we can codify the rules. We don't just ask large language models to guess, to hallucinate. And second point is that we, like I mentioned earlier, it's really important to have the human reviewer, especially considering the sensitivity of this use case, right? Sign off by a human, made the results trustable, but also it's audit proof, right? And the third point we think is also good is that in the solution we made it also a part of the feature is to explain why certain decisions, why certain scores are made by the agents, and that also gains a lot of trust from the users. It also helps them to be compliant when it comes to have audit show. So that's also one of the sort of like a success we think is linked to this one. Another thing from practical point of view, we would recommend when it comes to prototyping, implementing AI, agentic AI solutions, is that make sure the data access, the IT access, infrastructure access are arranged before we start. For some of the customers, because they're really eager to start, but then a lot of access are actually not really in place. And there's also certain sectors have regulations requires if you're handling customer data, right, you have to notify your customers like for 30 days, depending where you are. So those kind of things could be avoided or well prepared so that also the speed of the innovation can go a bit quicker. The last case study, if we go to the next slide, we'd like to share is in the energy utility sector, but this one can be broader, right? If you're a company with big engineering team developing software, developing solutions, forecasting models, and so on, and the code base are continuously being upgraded, developed, this solution, this case study will be relevant for you, right? So the problem that lies with a lot of engineering team is that because even nowadays, especially with agentic AI, that developing speed goes really quick, right? Of course, you could already use a lot of the Copilot assistant to improve the documentation, but what we've seen in practice is that usually the documentation drift still exists. What does documentation drift mean? It means that you have developed the solution, developed software, but your documentation for onboarding, for sharing with stakeholders are lagging behind. It could be different versions lagging behind, right? And in this case study, we were working with one of the Dutch energy distribution system operators, and they're really driving an open source initiative for energy forecasting called OpenStaff. For the past 3 years, the community has been growing quite big for OpenStaff. So it's not just relevant for Netherlands, not only for Belgium. It actually goes to European level, but also global level. There's people from New Zealand, from Sweden using the OpenStaff code base, but it has been lagging behind in documentation. So here we proposed and developed automated agentic AI workflow pipelines. It's actually quite simple. Every time there's a code change, if there's a new feature developed by the software engineers, the data scientists, it will trigger this pipeline so that agents will start to write the new documentation based on new versions. And it's actually in three formats. It's not only the text documentation, it's also the diagrams when it comes to solution architecture, but even videos, right? When you have a new joiner, new engineers starting, they like to see interactive materials to get to know the solution. And we provide some tutorial videos generated by AI in this solution as well. And before the new documentation is published, again, we like to have a double check with people. So with the senior engineers, they can review the changes made by AI before it's published in live. So that's the sort of the solution we built. If you look at the impact and lessons learned in the next slide, what we were able to do is that usually traditionally this take 2 or 3 sprints for engineer teams to really do a proper updates of the documentation, of course, depending on the size of the code base. But now it's automated solution. It's every time you release a new artifact in less than 10 minutes, a draft of the new documentation is ready. And like I mentioned, it's not only text, it's also diagrams, it's also tutorial videos, it's multi media through multimodal generated by AI. And what is also a high impact here is that simply in OpenStack, it's one of the Linux Foundation Energy project, and they have about 40 plus such projects. So this solution will be able to scale to those similar projects demanding such a solution. So it was actually quite impactful open source project we did. And so what we made it work, we think is that we allow the agents to draft, but then we still have the oversight from humans, so that before we publish to the community, the quality of the results are checked. And another really important thing we like to share here, maybe will also becomes the panel discussion later on, is that the cost linked to Victor's point on ROI is very important here for adoption, especially for open source community. They're really sensitive about the running cost of large language models. So during this project, we were able to optimize a lot of the heavy cost. And in one of the storage components, we reduced the cost by almost 99%, which is a huge gain. So it's easier for open source community to adopt the solution. So there we also integrate the solution to the workflows, making it not a standalone tool, but also part of the CI/CD, the development life cycles. And also mentioned it's a reusable solution. So this approach can be for the 40 plus similar projects, can also be any of your engineering code base in your companies. With that, I conclude the case studies from our side. I hand back to Ciara for the panel part.
Thanks, Hugh. Thanks, Victor. Okay, so we've talked through, I suppose, three different examples in three different sectors, three different starting points. What we had intended to do was a little bit of a panel discussion, but I think my sense of time is completely off. So what we might do is just open it up to the floor. So if anybody has any questions, based on anything that we've covered off today, we'd love if you just, unmute, or if you want to fire a question into the chat, that would be great as well. So does anybody have any questions? Maybe while we're waiting for, and I might just throw one out to Hugh and Victor. I know we very much framed sort of the session today around kind of the challenges, being more about the approach rather than the technology. But I guess a lot of organizations are still spending a lot of time on, technology decisions, which model, which platform, which vendor. Given how fast the landscape is moving, how should they be thinking about infrastructure choices, so that they aren't locked into something that could be obsolete in a relatively short amount of time?
Yeah, definitely. I think in our experience with different customers, sometimes we see vendor lock-in, right? Some customers are really sticky with, for example, with Microsoft, with Azure, everything they do is Copilot. Sometimes for certain complex use cases, it's quite limited, and they are sticky to certain models. There, we always advise all the technology, especially in the Gen AI domain, goes really fast, evolves on the daily, weekly basis. If you're locking into one technology, there's a huge risk of been missing out on more advanced, more economic solutions. Of course, for many enterprises on large scale, we see that's really hard to move fast. But we always recommend to be a little bit more flexible when it comes to adopting certain infrastructure, to be careful making the design so that it's flexible and also quicker when there's new model available. For example, with AWS Bedrock, with Azure Foundry, they can be, hosting different type of models, not only the more powerful Claude open AI models, but also sometimes the open source model in certain regulated environments. Such a decision becomes super important, right? Also to keep the on-premise options open as you're part of your infrastructure design, so that when it comes to sensitive data, certain compliance requirements, you have such a possibility to still deploy release the power of automation from AI, but then have suitable infrastructure with you to be compliant with your local regulations.
Yeah, this is really for the enterprise agentic. After there is like personal agent, etc. And for this, there is based on your company needs, based on the people needs, etc. You can run like some studies around which technology providers, such as like Claude, OpenAI, Gemini, etc., based uh, to define which one is the best for you for your company.
Just
Sorry.
quick question there. You discussed about AI taking, I suppose, not taking, but replacing the effort of FTEs on processes, etc. Have you found within organizations that you've engaged with that they feel they have to go through a sort of a change management process there as well to make sure that, people are not feeling that their role is being replaced or by agentic AI or that?
Well, I can take the beginning of this question, and the other one can take it as well. Um, so usually the needs come from the top and the bottom, right? The top management saying like the team is under pressure, the teams need some relief on like their amount of work, etc. So we need a solution here to relieve them from work, right? So that's the top approach. The bottom approach is they're crying for a solution to be faster, to be better, and to reduce manual work and focus on um, more 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 productive work. Some value added work, not the manual processes. So it's everyone encompasses when we explain it that way, and this is the reality. It won't replace job. You always have oversights. You always have someone looking over the agents. So yeah, it's yeah. That's my answer. Who do you have something?
Yeah, I think Ciara also have something to say, but I'll be very simple. So if you look at the the three people from CS side, we have two people, Ciara, Victor from digital transformation. So they're focused on transformation. Only one guy, me from techie, from technology side. I think that's the reality we're in. Like, a lot of things we're running for clients is transformation, is change management. It's less about, or technology is super important, but plays, let's say, 1/3 or even less of the whole project.
Yeah, like I think it's obviously a fraught question or a fraught area. And I think it's very much a case by case what's required in terms of the change management side of it and how you need to support people. But I think it kind of comes back to one of the points that has been made a couple of times, which is, AI is, you can look at it purely from a cost and efficiency perspective. But if you can engage with people and have them see the opportunity side of it, that actually, I think for a lot of us that are engaged in this, like we're busier than ever. um, you know, there's a lot of opportunity that comes with that, and therefore, like there's a lot of, I think, responsibility on organizations to be able to communicate that or to work with work with their people to help them see what that opportunity is. There's no question, I think, obviously, that, there's going to be such a massive change across all sorts of sectors. What that change looks like is going to be very different from role to role, from organization to organization. Um, you know, but that's not necessarily, to Victor's point there. It's okay. Can we reduce some of the manual effort and enable people to spend more time on value add? So I think there is a big communications piece that needs to come with it, but what that looks like and how that needs to be implemented from organization to organization varies very much based on what that organization is and what that organization does. What's your view on it, Mark?
Well, I think no matter what any organization is doing today, they have to embrace that agentic AI is there, and it's coming thick and fast. So it's about really finding how that the role of people in the organization will change. And so again, identifying what does that mean. So as part of any change, ensuring that that is an open discussion with them and with the people involved. So I think there's no getting away from it. It's like any other wave that we've had over the various years, and people adapt to the situation. So I think that's straight in front of us, and I think as our organization is doing, it's sort of saying, okay, look, I mean, what a developer is doing today, okay, they're still going to be developing, but they're just going to be developing in a different way. And same for product people and people working with the client. So yeah, so it's about embracing it and seeing, based on use cases that you presented today, where the benefits are and how you can frame things in the right way, or the approach to getting to an endpoint that helps improve things for the organization.
Yeah. And I suppose the other thing is, I know it's like the various technology waves we've had before have led to like new areas that didn't exist prior to them. It's also led to roles becoming redundant. I think that the big challenge is the pace of change is just not letting up at all to allow people to really kind of sit with and get their heads around it. There is it will continue, the change will continue at pace for a long time. So just getting comfortable with change and getting comfortable with that change being the status quo, I think is part of it as well. I think we are now 1 minute to 2. So I think we shall wrap it up there. From my side, before I hand back to Mark, just thanks very much to Victor and Hugh for sharing their experiences on the projects that they've been working on. And as said at the top, thanks to Leah and Estelle. And I'll hand back to Mark.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ciara, Victor, and you. So that concludes our second part of our tech series. I'd like to thank Sia again for putting in all the effort to put this together for us. To Estelle and Leah as well in the chamber for helping with the logistics. And we look forward to seeing you all after the summer break, when we will have our third session with our Sageti, our partner in the chamber, who will be presenting around data governance, etc. More to come on that in the coming weeks. But we hope you will join us in September and have a great summer.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye bye.